Tánaiste, in 5 days' time we will have the annual budget. True to form, most of the major announcements will of course be leaked over the weekend. The state is in an unprecedented situation. Billions are available to invest, yet there is a poverty of ambition and no vision. We live in a rich country that feels so poor. It's a country of winners and losers. Now, Ireland has a chronic infrastructural deficit. Despite recent increases in the capital budget, as a percentage of overall government spending, it remains below where it was in 2008. Now, 2 weeks ago, Minister Chambers said he would have €3 billion extra to spend on infrastructure from the sale of AIB shares. The Summer Economic Statement outlines an increase in capital spending of €1.7 billion under the National Development Plan, up to €14.5 billion, bolstered by what I describe as the gimmick of €750 million of so-called windfall receipts. Now, that leaves a gap of €1.3 billion. Now, is the Minister for Finance planning to formally change the capital spending allocations? Will there be a new National Development Plan, or are we going to get more fiscal gimmickry in this budget? Will you confirm today, Tánaiste, that the Government intends to increase the budget figures that were published in July in the Summer Economic Statement? Because we do need to invest more, not in gold-plated bike sheds or security huts, but in our hospitals, on public transport and retrofitting, and most critically in housing. Now, the greatest workers' rights issue remains housing, and prices rose by 10% last year. Affordability is the problem, and we need much increased supply of over 50,000 new homes a year. Now, government policies like Help to Buy have actually hiked up prices, and the ESRI confirmed this last year. It's driven demand rather than boosting supply, and it is making homes dearer. Reports today say the Minister wants the cap increase above $500,000. So is that Fianna Fáil policy to subsidise the cost of housing, costing more than $500,000? Driving development needs increased funding from the state and policy certainty. Planning law has been changed almost yearly in recent years, and crucially, the residential zoned land tax has become a political football, and we still don't know if it's going to be in place next year. So we don't have a revised housing target from this government, and no clear sense if you will invest more when the private market and developers have failed to build enough. Housing for All proposes to build 10,000 social housing units next year and 6,400 affordable and cost rental homes. That's barely any increase on this year. And you say Housing for All is the only show in town. Now, Labour will outline our budget plans tomorrow to increase that by up to 6,000 more units a year, focused on public and affordable homes. So, Tánaiste, can you guarantee that the residential zoned land tax will in fact be operational next year? Do you agree with increasing Help to Buy for homes costing more than $500,000? Is the Minister for Finance and the Minister for Public Expenditure going to increase capital spending above what was in the Summer Economic Statement? And will the budget commit to increasing the number of social and affordable homes that will be built way beyond what is committed in your Housing for All policy?
Thank you, Deputy Nash. Tánaiste.
Well, first of all, I thank the Deputy for his remarks, and I would argue with him that there's no poverty of ambition. I think last year or this year we're spending up to $13+ billion on capital infrastructure, which is significantly higher than previous years, and the rate and level of capital expenditure during this government's term has been significantly higher than previous governments. The challenge with capital expenditure, of course, is the balance of making sure you don't overheat the economy in terms of the allocation of additional billions. But I think what we have done, which shows real ambition for the future, is the Future Ireland funds, the establishment of the Future Ireland Fund, the establishment of the Infrastructure, Climate and Nature Fund, where we are essentially future-proofing infrastructure for the long haul and giving confidence and certainty to industry, to the housing sector and the other sectors, that we intend to maintain expenditure levels or increase them progressively over the next number of years, notwithstanding the potential of cyclical changes. In other words, there will be ups and downs in the economy, revenue could go down, but through the Infrastructure, Climate and Nature Fund, we are saying we will have a fund there to make sure we get the metro done, to make sure that we get the roads that we want done built, to get more schools built, get more hospitals built, and infrastructure more generally. Now, there will be a release of additional capital from the AIB shares, and it is fairly clear that that will be allocated to infrastructure. and principally housing, to future-proof housing expenditure right through the decade, and water infrastructure, which I think is key, particularly for the towns and villages across the country, that we mandate Irish Water to do more with local authorities in respect of villages, towns, and the water treatment provision and plants in such towns, and of course investment in the grid, which is going to be essential in terms of the wind energy transformation that will occur in this country, but will require certainty around capital investment in the grid over the medium term. And those three areas, if you like, housing, water and the grid, are essential pillars in terms of the future development of the Irish economy and Irish society. And the Apple funding as well will be allocated principally to those areas, although no final decisions have been taken, but political parties no doubt will establish their priorities in respect of that. This government is quite entitled to outline its priorities in respect of the capital, and I've given three key areas there. And we also have surpluses. So the issue actually isn't an absence of capital. The issue is how do we develop a sustainable programme of capital investment that can sustain over a decade and shelter that then from any sort of winds or storms that might come our way in the intervening period. That's the agenda.
Deputy Nash.
Thanks very much, Tánaiste. But I would disagree with you. I think the problem is a lack of ambition and a lack of vision. That's been the consistent pattern here from what I describe as a very conservative coalition. Ireland is a rich country, but you preside over one that continues to feel so poor. There's one key question that I want to put to you, Tánaiste, and that is the status of the residential zoned land tax. The ESRI didn't put a tooth in it today when they said that land comprises about 20% of the final cost of a home. Now, we know that you cannot control material costs, you cannot control labour costs and other costs that go into developing homes, but you have the responsibility to use the tax system responsibly to disincentivise land hoarding. You can make a real difference overnight. So are you going to introduce the residential zoned land tax next week? Are you going to confirm that in the budget? I would appreciate an update from you on that. That is critically important. Or are you going to continue to put the primacy of land ownership before the public good?
Thank you, Deputy.
Well, first of all, it was this government that introduced the RSLT legislation. And also, I think all parties in the House, unless I've mistaken your own position, were of a view that productive farmers, people who are actively working their land, should not be captured by the RSLT. I don't know if that's your position or not, but it certainly is the position of the three-party leaders. The mechanisms devised to enable farmers not to be covered have not worked. That's the reality, have not worked. And so therefore, discussions are underway, led by the Minister for Finance. Three-party leaders have been sort of apprised of that proposal, the objective of which is to exclude people who are active farmers who didn't either seek zoning or who have no intention of zoning, who want to continue on with a bona fide economic activity. I think that's a legitimate point, and there are other issues as well. But the view is to have that issue resolved before budget and the Act brought into brought the Act in.